This podcast serves Middle Tennessee every weekday morning, and it's made possible by member support. Learn how you can make a difference at WPLN.org/support.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's October 24th, 2025. On this day in 1938, a landmark law went into partial effect in the United States, the Fair Labor Standards Act. Some of its measures were slowly phased in, like the creation of a minimum wage. But on this day, it became illegal for certain types of businesses to use child labor. Now, there had been other attempts to chip away at the practice of putting kids to work. In 1893, Tennessee outlawed the practice of employing children under the age of 12 in workshops, mills, mines, or factories. Before that, the state had approximately 70,000 working children between the ages of 10 and 13, old enough to understand what they were supposed to do, small enough that they could fit into small spaces that adult workers couldn't access. The federal government had made some moves to reform that situation, too. But the Fair Labor Standards Act made the most impact when it comes to making sure people under the age of 18 aren't put at risk or made to do what should be adult tasks in the workplace. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Labor laws in this country seem to be in a perpetual state of push and pull. To one person, they are necessary protections for workers who would otherwise be exploited. To another, they're troublesome overreach that gets in the way of profits and job creation. To some extent, the debate calms down when it comes to child labor, but not entirely. Earlier this year, the Economic Policy Institute published an article saying labor standards in the U.S. are under attack, especially those pertaining to the under-18 workforce. They pointed to 7 states considering a rollback to state-level protections for kids and 11 that have softened those regulations in the past few years. Guess which list Tennessee is on? In particular, the EPI points to a law that passed in 2023 that opens the door for this state's 16 and 17-year-olds to work in places that sell a lot of booze. Now, that's long been an area where kids were not supposed to work because, basically, people who are getting drunk can be a lot. We all know this. That's a situation where workers are especially likely to be subject to uncomfortable things that are tricky to handle, like sexual harassment. It also creates really easy access to the alcohol if those teenagers aren't legally allowed to be drinking themselves. The bill was sponsored by House Speaker Cameron Sexton and passed both the House and Senate unanimously. It does specify the teens can't be the ones to take or serve those beverages, but they could be bussing tables or working the host stand, all kinds of jobs where the customer isn't necessarily going to respect the difference in their role from that of an adult server. Most of the risks that are the reason teens weren't previously allowed to work those jobs still exist, even if someone else is the one actually handling the drinks. The following year, this is just last year, a bill was filed that would take things a little bit further. Now, this measure did not pass, but it tried to drop the legal age for transporting, possessing, selling, or dispensing alcohol to just 16, as long as you're doing it as a job. The report showed a wide variety of actions being taken in other states, some of which seem to be in direct conflict with the federal standard, and that's not Tennessee. But the list does include a number of states ours tends to be in sync with, which means we should perhaps be on the lookout for copycat measures to show up here. For instance, Iowa passed a law that gives state agencies the ability to waive the ban on kids under 18 doing hazardous tasks. That waiver could be issued on a case-by-case basis for specific construction and demolition sites. It also opens the door to hiring kids as young as 14 to work in places like industrial laundries. In Florida, lawmakers considered a bill to eliminate restrictions on the hours school-age kids can work, even allowing employers to schedule teens for overnight shifts, and giving the okay for businesses to hire and schedule 13-year-olds for summer jobs, as long as those kids turn 14 during that calendar year. Thankfully, that bill died without becoming law. But that's just because people expressed outrage. It made it through a lot of hearings before lawmakers decided to set it aside. I can't help but think of the times my husband used to come home from teaching high school and tell me about parent-teacher conferences where the parent flat out just said, "Look, I know you're upset my kid isn't doing your homework, but their job comes first because we've got to eat. Some families are in dire situations, and the only way to get by is for their teens to find work as soon as they're allowed. And loosening child labor laws does make it theoretically easier for those families to bring in a little more money. But it comes at a great cost. Kids who work the overnight shifts that some Florida lawmakers wanted to make legal probably just aren't going to move ahead with their education at all. That's a recipe for not finishing high school, much less anything beyond that, which of course continues the cycle of being stuck in low-paying jobs and eventually being desperate themselves for their own children to start working as soon as possible. Kids doing dangerous jobs on construction sites or handling caustic chemicals in industrial laundries could suffer injuries that permanently take them out of the workforce before they're even old enough to vote. And along with these measures to try and open more kinds of jobs to teenagers, there are attempts to say the minimum wage doesn't apply to young workers. And if that's allowed, all that risk the kids take on is for a bare bones impact on the family's bottom line. In just a few minutes, a Nashville rapper who's helping formerly incarcerated kids develop new skills. That's coming up after the newscast.
Tennessee's legislature has passed a record-breaking number of anti-LGBTQ laws. I'm Mariana Baca-Yao, and as WPLN's Power and Equity reporter, I focus not only on how marginalized communities contend with those new laws, but how they come together in spite of them.
I think what gives me hope is that someone like you is covering this. Because if the overwhelming narrative is one of defeat, how can we have hope?
Listen here on 90.3 WPLN News.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. In the month since Volkswagen issued what it's called its last, best, and final offer to workers in Chattanooga, some are ready for a vote. But the Chattanooga Times-Free Press reports the United Auto Workers Union hasn't been in a rush because the union still wants a deal closer to what it got with Detroit carmakers like Ford and General Motors. While some workers say they're ready to be done bargaining, union officials argue they're the minority, and most still want to push for more. They also say Volkswagen has a legal obligation to keep working toward a deal and not just issue a take-it or leave-it offer. VW's proposal would raise wages some 20% over the next few years and includes a bonus and lower health care costs. A UAW counterproposal addresses concerns around job security and making sure wages keep up with the cost of living. Tennessee school districts are asking for the state to pay for special education pre-K services. Federal law requires public schools to serve all students, regardless of disability. And while the state allocates funds for special education students in K through 12, younger students do not get recurring funds under Tennessee's school funding formula. Students with disabilities often require additional staff and services, which can be expensive for schools. Chalkbeat reports one Tennessee school district spends $800,000 on special ed pre-K annually, while receiving only $23,000 in state grants. The Tennessee School Boards Association pushed earlier this year to update the funding formula to account for these students. Now 2 districts in Shelby County are renewing the call. State Representative Mark White, a Republican from Memphis, tells Chalkbeat he plans to push for the funding next year, though he says the $159 million annual estimate makes it a tough sell. He says even if the legislature doesn't fully fund that amount, schools need recurring dollars to serve preschoolers with disabilities. A new clinic from the Legal Aid Society and Bassberry and Sims Law Firm will offer free legal services to Nashvillians. WPLN Cynthia Abrams reports the hope is to help residents navigate evictions, benefits, taxes, domestic violence cases, and more.
In the U.S., there is no legal right to an attorney in civil cases.
We are familiar with the Miranda rights that say that if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you. Well, unfortunately, that only applies in criminal cases.
That's Darkenya Waller of the Legal Aid Society. She says the decision to hold the reoccurring clinic at the Pruitt Branch Library, next to a public housing complex in South Nashville, was intentional.
Unfortunately, people think that sometimes because you don't have income, you don't have legal issues. But the truth of the matter is those are probably the people who have the most.
It's not the only resource the Pruitt Branch provides. The monthly clinic will usually be held on Thursdays, the same day that the library offers free lunches and haircuts. Organizers hope this will help improve access to the legal aid. The first clinic is set for December 2nd, and is open to residents citywide. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
2 Tennessee mothers are pushing for more recess and outdoor learning opportunities for kids in elementary school. Their local efforts have grown into a national movement in the last 10 months, according to News Channel 5. The Say Yes to Recess campaign has already proven successful in Tennessee, leading to new legislation requiring 40 minutes of recess time in elementary schools. The movement's co-founder, Morgan Garner, is now pushing for similar policies in 15 other states. She says they want 60 minutes of daily recess time and insists it should not be taken away as punishment. As we head into the busy holiday travel season, a couple of changes are happening to the roadways around Nashville International Airport. The big one is a new ramp onto Interstate 40. The Tennessee Department of Transportation has finished moving the portion of its interchange that lets people leaving the airport enter the eastbound lanes of traffic. The state still has work to do on the overall project, some finishing touches on the newest pavement of both the interstate and Donaldson Pike, but also more construction that will have to wait until the airport completes the next phase of its traffic updates. As for the airport itself, a new access lane opened last week for guests at the on-site hotel and people using valet parking. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. It's not every day that 3 Nashville hip-hop artists team up to headline a show, but that's happening tonight. 2 Live Bree got Daisha McBride and Tim Gent on board. And Bree's been doing a lot of other community building and career building. Senior music writer Julie Height brings us this thoroughly Nashville story.
I'm grateful to be here first and foremost. I actually was here when I was like 12 or 13 at the Boys and Girls Club when they was here, and that's where I started my dream. So to be here in front of the future, because I know y'all got dreams of yourself, I'm grateful for it.
These days, 2 Live Bree visits his old middle school stomping grounds, not to reminisce, but to pay it forward.
Whole team fly, and yeah, we know it. Making plays, what's next, where we going? I can see you on the top, where we going?
Bree's there to listen to the 6th graders, too.
If y'all got any questions, I'm willing to answer. Don't ask me nothing crazy.
And of course, one kid just had to know how much money a hip-hop artist makes.
How much money you got?
Bree was pretty much their age when a friend swiped his journal, skimmed its rhymes, and told him he ought to try rapping.
And it was just spelling my name, L to the I to the L to the V to the R to the E. Yeah, that's me, and I don't know the rest.
He went by Lil Bree back then, and he was struggling to reconcile 2 different ways of growing up.
My dad had a lot of street adversity. That's all he had around him in North Nashville, and you had to embrace how to make it out. I had to deal with gang activity, violence, people dying. When I go to my mom, I had to, code shift. Like I had to change into what my mom wants me to be. The kid that's going to school, making good grades, and smiling, button up, go to church on Sunday.
In music, Bree found a path of his own. He had a mentor who filmed his music videos and introduced him to pillars of the local hip-hop scene. And he also took notes on how teen rappers like Soulja Boy blew up.
So I started blowing up in all these high schools, and people were booking me for Sweet 16.
I'm not normal. I'm not normal. These girls love Breezy cause he ain't normal.
Bree's mom saw his hometown hero status when her co-workers wanted him to perform at their daughter's birthday parties. But his school-attending relatives already knew.
Young kids on all sides of the family like, yo, take a picture with me so I could prove that you're my cousin.
Bree got to open for Southern hip-hop stars who came through town. He thought about hitting the road after high school, but enrolled at Tennessee State instead. That's when he became 2 Live Bree.
My first 2 weeks, somebody asked me to be a Kappa. I started doing parties with the Kappas, but I was like, I'm not going to join a fraternity. I want to take over this campus. I want to be cool with everyone.
Let's go. Hey.
Professors in TSU's mass comm department took note of how he blanketed their building with flyers promoting his singles and made him a class project.
Like if we were marketing Bree's next single, how would we do it?
He got permission from the dean to miss classes and compete on the Netflix hip-hop competition Rhythm and Flow.
We looking for that it.
And even though he didn't win, the show boosted his national profile. He tried to capitalize by playing to new fans, but the COVID shutdown stole his momentum. Bree had to process that whiplash and other life-altering experiences. By then, he'd lost his best friend to gun violence. He'd witnessed soul-bearing artists move audiences to tears, and he was about to become a father. So he'd grown restless with party bangers.
Right after therapy, like my first 3 therapy sessions, I wrote this song, and it was my first song in this new mindset.
Gotta move like a butterfly. Can't caterpillar your whole life. Who say humans can't fly?
I got a story. I've been around all these things. It woke me up.
That's when Bree started reinvesting in his community through his Butterfly Nation programs. One goal was to boost other artists, and another was to help kids who've done time in juvenile detention find their voices through music.
I look at myself when I see these kids. I didn't have nobody to talk to, period. Music was everything for me to express myself. Let me find a producer that I work with. We'll do the studios on Saturday. We'll talk to these kids. We'll do a project for them, and it's been working.
At this point, Bree's been a fixture in Nashville's hip-hop scene for just over half his life, without access to his own city's star-making industry infrastructure. But he's intent on breaking down barriers to those resources. Bree invited Daisha McBride and Tim Gent, 2 other artists working to launch their hip-hop careers from Nashville, to join him at headlining a hometown show tonight.
Turn me up, turn me up, turn me up. Tee me up, tee me up, tee me up.
And Bree recently signed with well-connected managers who've gotten him meetings with New York rap and pop labels and country outfits in Nashville. He's also secured his first collaborations with producers who can help him explore his countryside.
Oh, I'm so sure I need a southern country girl.
However 2 Live Bree decides to advance his career from here, he'll champion his community on Music Row, just like he has throughout the city.
That is when I felt like, dang, I actually belong in the building here. Because a lot of us artists feel like it's our hometown and we can't even say hello to them people. I was like, dang, I'm breaking some ice today.
Julie Height, Nashville Public Radio.
Yeah, you done let that thing into your head. Please don't push me, I'm to the edge. I bet I live rent-free in your head. Hey, are you ready? People be thinking so much about me, but I cannot wait seconds on that. Oh no, I used to be smiling and faking this journey, even that act in the past.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up next week.